come on, that thing is awful. It looks awful. It drives awful. They could easily do a 0-pointer this season.
The minute I saw Lewis Hamilton saying he's going to Ferrari, I knew that car, they must be making some serious improvements. We got wide chassis. We got Albon, who's a great driver, right? And then we got Sargent, who's rubbish, right? So how do we weigh this up here?
Well, hello and welcome to On Track GP right here on DR Sports. It was the Australian Grand Prix this weekend and there was no Max Verstappen because he had a DNF, which we never see. And we're going to get into it. Joining me is Joey Ashman and, of course, Robbie, Joe, formerly known as Joe Ashman. We've had a rebrand while we've been sitting here, so he's now Joey Ashman.
We're going for Joey, yeah.
We're going for Joey. Do you like it, Joey?
Is it sort of Robbie, Joey? That works, doesn't
trendy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was a rebrand.
Just copying you, that's what it is.
I really like it. I'm here for the Joey. Let us know if you like it. I'm here for it. But it was the Australian Grand Prix this weekend, Melbourne. It's never a race that disappoints. There's red flags galore every single year. Lots of drama, but we will start with the biggest thing of the weekend, which obviously was Max Verstappen having a DNF. First DNF in 2 years. The last time he DNF'd was actually at the same race.
Yeah.
None of us could have foreseen that was going to happen. We all thought it'd be another banker for Red Bull, didn't we, Joe?
It's crazy. I mean, we've got so used to seeing that car be ridiculously reliable, never breaking down, under 2-second pit stops sometimes, and on top of that, having Max Verstappen behind it. They've just had so much success that suddenly that back tyre starts smoking a little bit, and we're thinking,
as soon as lights out as well.
Hold on a minute, hold on, whoa, slow down everyone, is this actually happening? And then whatever it was, 5 or 6 laps in, he's out of there, and the race is taken by my boy Carlos.
Yeah, we are going to talk all about Carlos Sainz, who's had a brilliant start to the season. But Rob, just before we started filming, you were saying how happy you were to not see Max
Listen,
leading / on the grid at all, because it does make it a more competitive playing field, doesn't it?
It sounds horrible, yeah, but it's the best thing that could happen to Formula One. Him not winning that race, right? Because because look at the last race. He just like stormed away so easy. And after that first race, I think a lot of people were disillusioned and, first 2 races, just disillusioned and thinking, we're going to have another season where he's just going to get pole and then just cruise away. If you don't get him on the first lap, it's over. But this was great to see someone else winning it, the Ferraris as well. And it was just great to see him go out. And I know it sounds horrible, but it's just because, and that's a compliment to him because he's so good. Yeah. But for him to go out, and I was watching the highlights of it, right? Again in the gym. Right, and this guy goes to me, he goes, you know what, Rob? I reckon they sabotaged the car.
I think they did.
He goes, because they're having all these little internal arguments in that Red Bull. He goes, nothing's ever wrong with that car. The brakes. He goes, what? The brakes catch on fire. He goes, no, I think they sabotaged that car.
Well, they had a new power unit. They had a new power unit for this race. For anyone who obviously didn't know or didn't watch the race, we will give you an update now. It kind of started from the minute lights out. Max Verstappen said he kind of complained that the car was being loose from the get-go.
Yeah, he kept saying it's loose.
It's loose. He wasn't feeling comfortable with the car at all. Despite having a really great qualifying as well. And then that was kind of it. He noted that it felt like a stuck brake at the rear of the car from the moment that the lights went out. It was as if he was driving with the handbrake on. So they noticed it very, very early on. And it was essentially basically had no brakes.
As soon as they opened up the DRS, so that Carlos could open up his rear wing, I mean, he got past him so easily.
And at that point, we were like, right, there's something wrong with the car.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you were a bit more, pessimistic than me. I sort of thought, oh, well, clearly the DRS is going to be ultra powerful here, and it's going to be Max Carlos, and they're going to keep getting each other on that long straight, whoever's got the DRS. But Max didn't get anywhere near, really, after that. And then, as you say, the smoke comes out, and he's saying, yeah, the car's loose or whatever, and it feels like he's driving with the handbrake on, and he pulls it into the pits and it's game over.
Well, the reason why I say it pessimistically is because I don't see Max Verstappen really battling with anyone. As a Red Bull fan, I'm not saying it to be cocky, but it's true. Like, they've built a rocket ship, and Max is such a brilliant driver that for me, that it can't be down to Max if there's a problem, you know? It just can't.
He's
like,
that good.
He's that good. And, you know, the car has been the most reliable car on the grid for the last 2 years. So
And then all of a
immediately,
sudden...
when you just see Carlos Sainz just overtaking him and Max just sitting there, you're like, nah, there's something wrong with the car. Can't be Max.
No, I'm starting to wonder if the guy's theory in the gym. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, car catches a fire. Yeah.
And that's
you know, Checo's car was all right.
Checo's car was all right. We're going to talk about Checo in a little
talk
while.
about him, for sure.
We will talk about him. But another car and another driver that was out pretty early on, lap 17, was Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes.
Yeah.
He has been extremely critical of Mercedes. We all know he's going to Ferrari next year, so he can kind of say whatever he wants at this point, can't he? But he did not have a good weekend at all. It was actually a terrible weekend all round for Mercedes because of what happened with George Russell. But I guess we'll touch on that after.
Yeah, he said something like it's the least confident he's ever felt in the car, which is like, talk about big statements. That's huge. And then the car, as it said, you know, you've got these two absolute titans of the sport. You know, 10 world championships between them, and they're both out with halfway through the race. So I mean, that's incredibly uncommon. Both of them are such consistent drivers, ultimately let down by their machinery.
Well, Lewis also questioned the team's decision to start on a soft tyre. Do you think that could have anything to do with it? It wasn't engine failure in the end, but all of this, I guess, makes up the car, doesn't it?
I think he was making a lot of excuses. But again, the conspiracy theories, he's leaving.
I love the Robert conspiracy theories, man. Bring them on. Bring them on, man. I love it.
George Russell's car was all right until he crashed it. Right? There's nothing wrong with his one. He's leaving the team. Verstappen could be coming in. I don't know, man.
Verstappen coming into where? To
Mercedes,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what the big rumour is, isn't it? There's that car never breaks down, does it? Well, that's the other car that don't really break down a lot, does it?
Well, they've had a lot of problems with the car.
Yeah, but not breakdown, not like retirements.
They haven't had a double DNF in a crazy long time.
Well, in fairness, the second DNF
wasn't
it wasn't really George's fault. He was having a pretty decent race up until that point.
Well, you can blame Fernando Alonso for that.
Well, he did. Well, we will, because the FIA did.
Hamilton's having a shocker.
He's 9 minutes.
And you know, it'd be a bit like, you know, in football when a player's set to be leaving, and you look at him and you start to say to yourself, "Oh, is this guy? He's already at the other club. The way he's playing, it's starting. I know he's still early in the season, but he's kind of looking that way with Lewis. It's like, oh, you've been in all 3 races so far. You've been so lackluster.
Well, he's also not taking any prisoners by what he's saying. Like,
yeah, but what about him? Because and then you're looking at the performances of George Russell, and then you're like.
We actually spoke about this last week.
It's miles off, isn't it?
On last week's pod with Richard and Matisse, that if you were taking it off of a sample size of the last kind of like 4 or 5 years, and you just saw Lewis and you didn't know all the championships he's won, you would think probably not the best driver, right?
Yeah,
but obviously it's context, and it's contextual for the car and the driver, because we were talking about obviously trying to get the old guard out and the new guard in. And at what point do we make that call on someone like Lewis as well?
God, yeah. I mean, it's a classic case of like recency bias, isn't it? You know, looking at what's been happening more recently. But I think the argument to that would be that you look at the Checo Max situation. Checo isn't able to do anything close in a brilliant car that Max is able to do in that brilliant car. And I think if you were to put Lewis in a brilliant car, he would still be able to deliver at least very, very close to what Max has been doing.
Probably see more of that next year with Ferrari.
And maybe he's thinking that, because he's just been so below par. He's normally a relentless driver, isn't he? He's normally like, I don't know, you can lose just a slight percentage of that.
Is it like an edge you're talking about? He's lost the edge.
And you know in those cars you just lose your slight edge. You know that could be a second off the car.
Yeah,
and he just doesn't. The first 3 races have been very underwhelming. I mean, look at his qualification was terrible as well. Wasn't it?
It was.
Didn't even get out Q3, didn't he? So that's
qualified P11.
Yeah,
it's unheard of, isn't it? Like, yeah, I don't know. He's as I said, in football, we'd be saying he looks like he's already at the other club.
Well, I think we'll probably see whatever he does this year. We'll take it with a bit of a pinch of salt. Then if it carries on to Ferrari, then we have to start asking.
No, I think he'll be a new guy when he gets there.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
I hope so.
We'll see.
Really hope so. I want the old Lewis back.
Yeah, I think he'll be a new person when he gets there. I really do.
Let's see. I mean, it's going to be big shoes to fill, you know, Carlos Sainz.
I know. I mean, are we moving on to the Ferrari thing?
We can. We'll circle back
Yes!
to it. We'll circle.
1-2, baby!
I will
Come
circle
on!
back to George Russell.
Yes!
I feel like we need to give you the moment.
Oh my God! A Ferrari 1-2. Carlos Sainz leading it.
Good pit stops.
Unbelievable pit stops.
2.6. I loved it.
We've got to have a think about Carlos Sainz here. He had appendix surgery, abdominal surgery,
Appendicitis,
right? As he had, I think he's had it, this crazy intrusive surgery. 2 weeks later, he wins a Grand Prix on a really quick circuit. Oh, it's incredible! I absolutely buzzing for the guy, and Ferrari will be, I think, scratching their head and going, "Oh my God, have we got rid of the wrong driver?"
Well, I hate to say it, right? But if anyone was watching with us last season on Track GP, I did make quite a few claims to say that I think that Carlos Sainz is the better driver over Charles Leclerc. Ooh. And lots of people didn't like that. They said that I'm wrong, blah, blah, blah. Over the last two seasons or so, for me, Carlos has been the better driver. He's been more consistent. He's obviously got more bite about him this year, because there was always the question that he gets in these good positions and he gives it up quite easily. Like, he'll be P3, coming to the end of the race, and then he'll just give it up. But I feel like that's changed. He's got that dog in him now. And also, he's got something to prove. Ferrari made a big call here, letting him go, getting Lewis in, which I get. 8-time world champion, you want it, or 7-time whatever. But
Freudian slip.
Sorry, forgot about Max. But for me, I think that Carlos, he's got a big point to prove. There's going to be probably a seat vacant at Red Bull from Checo. There's going to be a seat at Mercedes. I think he's got the potential to be the first driver at Mercedes. I think he's a better driver than George Russell.
100%.
So it's a very big season, and I feel like he's like, okay, I'm not going to be disrespected by this. I'm going to go and make sure everyone wants me next season.
Which is kind of the opposite effect to like Lewis. What I'm saying with whereas Lewis is like, I know where I'm going to be next season, and maybe he's dropped a little. This guy's motivated because, like you said, he's not going to be there next year. And there's not many cars, where you can get. He wants a good drive in a good team, and after results like that, and if he puts in consistent performances throughout the season, he knows he'll get a good drive somewhere. So he's super motivated. Whereas I look at Lewis, doesn't look motivated. He will be next season when he's in that Ferrari, but at the moment, I'm not sure how motivated he is. So. But yeah, it was a great win. Great win for Sainz. I'm not sure. I think Leclerc's a better driver. What
do you think, Joe, on that? You're still fancying Charles Leclerc?
I'm not.
You're on my team.
I think.
Welcome.
I think, yes, Charles Leclerc, particularly his qualifying, can be brilliant. Ironically, this time, if he had a brilliant qualifying and qualified ahead of Carlos Sainz, he would have been the one that had won the race. But it's all about taking your opportunities. I think it's quite often said that, like, Charles Leclerc, they would say he has a higher ceiling.
Yeah, but what does that mean? He has a higher ceiling.
I don't know. How many stories is his house? It doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, it's true, but what does that mean?
For me, I think initially when they were paired up together, I was like, Carlos will probably be a little bit more like maybe consistent, but Charles is going to be the one that's going to be their number one driver and the one that wins the races. But it hasn't been that way. The last 3 Ferrari wins have been by Carlos Sainz. I think he's been more consistent. And I think the only reason I think Carlos is that touch for me, which is my opinion, the one I would rather have in my team, is his race craft. Charles can qualify really quickly, but when it comes to then racing for 60, 70 laps, whatever it is, I think Carlos's race craft and the way that he knows what's going on around him and stays so focused, that's the reason why he wins those races. So for me, I think Carlos is a slightly better driver. And he hasn't got a seat next year, which is mad.
It's wild.
I mean, he will.
Well, there's also, we were talking about it before, that there is this argument that maybe he would end up at Kick, which, guys, follow us on this, that it could be that he's at Kick / whatever else we're bugging it. Thank you, Steak. And obviously that is going to be Audi. So does he take a season to just chill in this car, be along with the development of it, and then be the face of Audi? Or if Checo moves, which we are expecting Checo to move, I'd like him in a Red Bull. Obviously, I've said before I'd love to have Lando, but that might not be a moving part that's possible. I think from someone that came through the Toro Rosso family, having Carlos Sainz be at Red Bull would make them pretty damn good, if they're not already at that stage.
Yeah.
But having a second driver of Carlos Sainz's stature and standing
It could be the
unreal.
main driver.
It could be huge.
It could be the main driver if Verstappen goes.
I just don't think this is going to happen. Like, I get there's been a lot going on with you know,
I think it could happen. You know?
Horner.
No smoke without fire.
There is no smoke without fire, but he has always said as long as Helmut Marko is there, he's not going anywhere. So I will start worrying when Helmut Marko
Helmut
goes.
goes.
He might
But
be gone.
I can't. For me, looking at the Mercedes and thinking about the progress that Mercedes clearly aren't really making at the moment, I'm not seeing Max go to Mercedes. Absolutely not at this moment in time.
I would hate to see Carlos go to Stake. I'd hate to see that for 1 year. Yeah, 26 Audi. Potentially there could be
First
quite
driver.
quick. He'll definitely be almost certainly be the number one driver when he goes to Audi. And yeah, the argument that yes, he'd have a year developing the car in the Stake to develop the car for when it becomes Audi in the 26 season. But come on, that thing is awful. It looks awful. It drives awful. They could easily do a 0-pointer this season. Go to Red Bull. Go to Red Bull
Just
and
for a
potentially
year?
win a championship. Yeah, go for a year. Brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean,
He'd only be winning a championship if Max left. Otherwise,
you're probably
he's just-
right.
Otherwise, he's going to be a number 2 again.
I'm not. Do you know what? I'm not 100% sure on that because I think if you look at
Max.
Wait
What
a
if Max is
minute.
still at the team?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Firstly, we're not sure if Christian Horner will be there. First and foremost, we don't know if that's going to be the case next year. We don't even know if that's going to be the case for the whole season. We actually really don't know that. And what I would say is that Checo has had opportunities to challenge Max. There has been opportunities, namely last year. Obviously, that was a massive drop-off from those first kind of 4 or 5 races to where we ended up. But Carlos Sainz in a Red Bull, I think, potentially does a better job than Checo in it.
Oh,
Do you think
definitely
so?
better than
So
him.
if we're looking at
100%.
Checo, who obviously is sometimes 20 seconds off Max and might be P2 or P3, right? Or P4 sometimes.
P5.
P5,
yesterday.
exactly. So if we're looking at that, I think that Carlos Sainz could probably get more of a Red Bull than Checo can.
Maybe,
Consistently.
but don't you think, right, that if Verstappen stays, right, could you imagine, like, the team telling him
Of course not.
to,
Team orders. Can you let Carlos through?
Yeah,
let Carlos
Obviously
through.
not.
Of
No
course,
chance.
of course
He's
not.
not doing that on it. He's a sort of, he gives me the vibes of Michael Schumacher back in the day. He run a man off the track. He
He
would.
will- he
There's
would care.
no way he's going to let him
I'm not saying that
win a
he's gonna-
championship.
No, but I'm saying that he might put up a good fight and they could
But
have
yeah,
two
he-
dogs in a race.
He put up a
rather
good
than just
fight,
one
but
dog
he
in a
wouldn't
race.
be. He wouldn't
And maybe
be a
they'd let the
champion.
drivers just fight out themselves. Wouldn't we love to see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no chance.
Yeah, it's
Zero
not going to
chance
happen.
of
But
that.
I'm just manifesting.
But
it.
he'd more than double his current race win total
For
in
sure.
one season in Red Bull
Podiums,
next year.
everything.
Podiums, just general getting your points
He'll
score
get more
up,
out of that car.
history books. I mean, for me, I'd be so disappointed to see him in that horrible green thing.
That thing.
tractor. Get it off.
Tractor.
I hate it. What a crap car that is,
Well,
man.
they had problems again this weekend.
Oh, what a
Kick,
surprise.
Sauber,
They haven't
Steak,
even got a
whatever we're
name.
calling it.
I hate them.
Problems during their pit stops. Bottas again struggling with the front left wheel. I mean, we're just literally having a limbo year with them. Like, we're not paying that much attention because the Alfa Romeo was absolute crap as well. So
Although the only thing I do like about the team is Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, bar
what a
Valtteri.
guy doing all these adverts in Australia. He's become like an honorary Australian citizen. He's brilliant. He's
Yeah, I
great.
like the helmet
Zhou
as well.
Guanyu's awesome too. But the team in general, I've just got absolutely no time for. No time.
no time. All right, let's do some more recap of the race, and then we'll have a look at the general over the weekend. Oscar Piastri, he ended his home race in P4, but he was told to swap positions with Lando. We have kind of discussed before that we're not sure who is the first. I mean, obviously it was Lando, his first driver, but Oscar's been so good that there isn't a clear definition really on track as to who the advantage should go to. Why do you think they told him to swap?
I think ultimately, actually, I actually think Oscar Piastri will win a race before a proper race, not a sprint before Lando. That's my prediction for this if they win one this season. But
And a
ultimately,
home race as well.
I think it was it ended up being the right decision for them because it's slightly tainted because the race finished under a virtual safety car, but he finished like 30 seconds behind Lando in the end. So there was a massive gap. As I said, it's slightly tainted because of the way that the race finished, but Lando was quicker. And you, in a team like that, when you've got two drivers that are so close, if one of them's quicker on the day, you have to give the driver that's quicker on the day the best chance. Now, the interesting question would be, would they do the same at Silverstone, for example,
With the
if
British.
Piastri was quicker, but
To let a
Lando
British
was in
driver
front,
through.
would they let or ask the British driver to let the Australian driver through? Would they play the same card if Piastri was quicker?
Number
Probably not.
one driver there at McLaren's Lando Norris. I think he's very obvious on what we saw on Sunday.
He's a phenomenal
Right?
driver.
He's a number one driver. He's the selling point of the team. I mean, every driver's got that. Every team, has got that driver that is their face of their team. That's Lando Norris, not Piastri. Piastri, maybe ability-wise, you could argue that he's better, or you could argue that there's not much in it. But the actual face of the team is like Hamilton's the face of, Mercedes, Verstappen the face of, that's why them guys ain't playing number two. And now I
don't think there's a particularly big gulf between Lando and Piastri. I really don't.
There's not a gulf in ability, but there's a gulf in the saleability, which I think that's Lando Norris. Is if you walked around, I don't know, anywhere and you said McLaren, people are going to say Lando Norris. They're not going to say Piastri.
But is that also because Oscar's only been around a season?
Yeah, and he's also, Lando Norris is like Zach Brown's adopted child,
Yeah.
really. He absolutely loves him.
Lando's been around a while.
He has been around a while and he hasn't won a race. And it is, I mean, I saw a clip that went viral and it was slightly tongue-in-cheek this weekend, but someone sort of shouts down into the paddock, "Lando, when are you going to win a race?" And he just goes... and sticks his middle finger up at them, which I thought was, again, I think it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but people are genuinely going, well, hold on, he's got all this talent, all this ability. He had the car last season. Really, they've been a little bit slower at the top of this season. When is the moment going to arrive? Is the moment ever going to arrive where he wins a race?
I really hope it does arrive, because we all love McLaren. Like, let's be real, we do. And I feel like they're definitely getting closer. They've got a car that obviously can race now, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's just having the improvements. I assume now, after this little break, we're going to see some more upgrades and more improvements that are going to come. And I feel like with McLaren, like, they really clicked into gear probably after like the 5th or 6th race last year. So we're 3 in. So probably by the time we start getting to Europe and into Europe, I would expect them to probably be every single week looking at them in that P2 to P5 mark.
Interesting.
Would you not agree?
I think Ferrari have really upped it this year. I think we've got 2 teams that have incredibly quick cars in Red Bull and Ferrari. I think Mercedes, I think they're a hell of a way off.
I don't think we can include Mercedes in this top 3 battle. I think that you would also have to admit, you'd probably say that if you're looking at the top 3 for this year as to where you think that and who are the cars that are going to be competing for a championship, you probably would say McLaren have replaced Mercedes.
Probably. And the minute, just going with Ferrari, the minute I saw Lewis Hamilton saying he's going to Ferrari, I knew that car, they must be making some serious improvements. The car was decent last year, but remember they had all the, obviously, with the previous sort of manager or leadership of the team, they had a lot of problems with the pit stops and reliability. But he's obviously been given reassurances that team is forging ahead. And
100%.
Ferrari, you can see it already. They've got a good car. They've got a very good car. Yeah, McLaren probably are third because Mercedes at the moment is poor by its high standards.
Sergio Perez, he could only manage 5th. Alonso and Stroll behind in 6th and 7th. We'll start with Sergio Perez. I know
massively missed opportunity.
I was going to say, I know there's lots of things you like to get off your chest.
Massively missed opportunity. His teammate DNFs, right? He knows he's got the quickest car. To be fair, actually, if Max had stayed in, I think it actually could have been I think Max would have still won it, but I think it could have been pretty close between him and Carlos at the front because they did look. The Ferrari was incredibly quick.
You're basing this on 1 lap.
But regardless,
you're literally basing this on 1 lap when Max had no brakes.
The Red Bull is so good. If Sergio Perez takes a 26-point haul there, he goes top of the Drivers' Championship by like a long way, like a really long way. And that, unfortunately, seems to sum him up. He doesn't take the opportunities when they're there. At some point, again, Max will have I assume Max will have a bad race like he did at Singapore, or the car will give up on him. And that's when Sergio needs to capitalise and be like, watch me do something here. Oh, no, I finished...
Let me keep my seat.
Yeah, and I finished 5th in Australia in a really quick car. It's not gone well, has it, Sergio?
No.
So I think, he should be very disappointed with that.
I can't really say anything else other than that. I can't back him up. I can't defend him. Alonso, we'll talk about this incident now. We've circled back to it. Obviously, a big incident with George Russell in the Mercedes and Fernando Alonso. For anyone that didn't see, he was kind of chasing him, Russell, wasn't he? From the highlights, if anyone saw, it was kind of like round the corner, around the bend, and then Alonso broke pretty late, and Russell was kind of still in the understeer, didn't really have much control, and late on the brakes. And then subsequently we see a big, I mean, it finished under a virtual safety car, but it was a big red flag, and it would have been a big red flag. And the car has obviously gone into the wall, and he's literally laying there in the middle of the track going, red flag, red flag, red flag, you know, panicking as these cars are literally coming around the corner at like 200 miles an hour, which I got. Fernando Alonso was dumbfounded that he has received a big penalty for this. It was a 20-second penalty and 3-point penalty. What do you think? Do you think that's too harsh, or you think it's fair? They're pinning all the blame on Alonso for this, for braking late. I think the blame is ultimately, having watched the interviews, I think the blame ultimately does lie at Fernando Alonso's door. George Russell was half a second behind him, and they're coming into a quick corner, and Alonso brakes 100 metres earlier than he has been for the rest of the however many laps they've done up to that point. He brakes early. Why did he do that, though? Well, I think it's to just throw a bit of momentum off George, so he doesn't get that last run and overtake him and nick the place, which is a thing. But essentially, it's a brake test, and he does it too much, and suddenly you can see George is right up the back of him, loses a little bit at the back of the car, and ultimately the crash, I mean, fortunately wasn't that bad. The way the car ended up made it look a lot worse.
It looked bad.
It looked terrible,
and it was actually really quite distressing hearing him like screaming for a red flag as he sits there on a 150 mile or 100 mile an hour corner in the middle of the track. So I'm not surprised that he was stressed. I think it was very naughty from Alonso, and
he knew what he was doing.
100%. And I think that's a fair. I think that's a fair penalty. I have to be honest.
I think it was like a brake test. That was we know Fernando Alonso what he can be like, you know. But I think he deserved that penalty. It could have been worse.
Correct.
That could have been
it could have been horrific. It could have been terrible. It's braking before the braking point. I mean, when I say braking late, I mean it was late that George couldn't physically couldn't see it. You know, and he's lucky to be fine. But I think George was having a decent enough race, wasn't he, that day? It was. He's not really setting the world on fire, car, but
I think he's doing all right. The car's not performing, and he's consistently been the best out of the two.
He has. He really has.
You know, and last season as well. Yeah. And I think he's a good driver.
Who do you think's the best out of those three? The three that sort of grew up together: Russell, Albon, and Norris. You stick them all in the Red Bull, for example.
Norris for me.
Norris?
Albon's good, you know, as well.
Alex Albon's a very, very competent driver, but for me, I think Lando's...
I think I agree. I think I'd go Lando.
I'd actually go as far to say Lando, Albon, Russell.
Wow. Yeah.
Do you see where I'm going with that?
Albon's good, you know.
I'm putting him second. I think he's great. I think, if anything, I'm being nasty about Russell, who just doesn't set my world on fire. But
Russell's a good driver.
He's a good driver, but I feel like the problem with Albon is that he came in too early at Red Bull, and obviously you don't get time, you know, and that kind of stunted the growth a little bit. But he's doing such a fantastic job at Williams, which we will move on to. Nice tee up, guys. That again, we need to see him back in a really competitive car. There's a shout for Mercedes. Albon to Mercedes?
That might be...
Not a competitive car, mind you, but...
It's been rumoured. So
there's going to be a lot of silly season things that happen.
I can't wait. It's brilliant.
I know.
I
need next year already.
Silly, but it's over the summer. They just go mad. Who's going where? It's all rumours.
Well, you see, this excitement has all come from Verstappen losing that race.
Yeah.
Let's be real. If he would have won that race, the amount of excitement, the amount of people talking about the different scenarios like how we're doing and different drivers, all of a sudden we're talking about, we hardly mentioned Max. Whereas the other races, it was just like, Max, they just drove off into
do you know what? People hate it when you're at the top, don't they?
And I always say it's not his fault. He's good. He's better than good. He's exceptional. So, and he just does what he does. But him losing that race, and also I think the car showing a bit of vulnerability, it's good for F1.
Yeah.
Because now all of a sudden people are getting excited again about the season, getting excited about other drivers.
100%.
Could this driver
And
do
also,
this
it's
and
early
do
doors.
that?
Like, we're very early into this season as well. Like, we're only 3 races in. We've got a hell of a long way to go as well. So it's exciting to get something exciting early doors.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
agree.
Exciting to get something exciting. Sonoda was in the points for the RB, obviously with the Alonso deduction that kind of put Yuki in P7. Lance Stroll in
Massive
P6.
points haul for that team.
Very, very big points haul. And also the Hasses as well this week. Big weekend for Haas.
Double pointer.
Dirty driving again. They really do drive proper dirty, and I don't know if it's their new team principal that's basically drummed this into their head to do it, but like, I'm going to give them credit where it's due, because if these points are crucial if you're Haas, and the type of money that if you can finish with, you know, just a couple more points like from where you finish on the grid, like, it's huge for a team like Haas. So for me, I'm all for the dirty driving. I know it's split decisions a little bit.
The Haas looks better though.
It doesn't.
Under as you said, you know, having lost Gunter, I think having an engineer as your team principal seems to be a positive way forward. It's working for Williams with James Vowles, and it seems to be working with Haas. I know it's early on, but I think they're 6th in the constructors already. So I think that seems as though that could be quite a positive thing.
That is the first double points finish for Haas since the 2022 Austrian Grand Prix.
Oh wow, a year and a half.
Yeah.
God.
That is also, I've got some other stats for you. Should I just give you some stats?
I love stats.
Cool.
Yeah.
First double retirement for Mercedes since 2018 Austrian Grand Prix. Austria was going off, clearly. First race where both Max and Lewis retired since the pair collided.
When he ended up on top of his car.
What race was
Where
it?
was that?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh God.
Can you get it?
Oh no. Oh no.
I'll
I
give
can't.
you the year, 2021.
Yeah. In the championship fight. It's where the halo literally saved Lewis's life.
Nice.
Where was it?
It was the 2021 Italian Grand Prix.
Italian.
What else have I got for you in here? I love a stat. First Ferrari 1-2 finish in Melbourne since Michael Schumacher and Barrichello in 2004. Christ almighty. Sainz victory was the first time a driver won on their return from illness and medical absence since Gerhard Berger in 1997 in the German Grand Prix.
Wow.
What else I got for you? On Wednesday, it will be officially 500 days since someone other than a Red Bull or Carlos Sainz won an F1 Grand Prix. And that was George Russell in 2022 for the Sao Paulo.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Come on, look at Carlos.
And do you know what was weird? Carlos won the Singapore Grand Prix, and George crashed on the last lap. And Carlos won the Australian Grand Prix, and George crashed on the last lap. I love those little.
Freaky.
Interesting
Have that one?
coincidence,
I like that. I've got one more for you. I've got one more, then we'll quickly talk about Williams. Second successive race where Carlos Sainz won and George Russell crashed on the final lap. It also happened in
Singapore.
Yep. Russell also crashed out. I didn't even see that stat, and you just said it before.
Yes.
Wow.
We love stats.
We love stats. We're all here for the stats. Stats every week. Okay, right, quickly. We are going to talk about Williams. There was a few problems this weekend, wasn't there?
You love Williams, don't you?
Yeah, you're a big fan of Williams.
Yeah, I like Williams. I always say I got a friend who used to work for them, and I was chatting to him about it, and he was like, "That's a disaster."
Yeah, it was
like to
bad.
not have a backup chassis.
Disaster.
He was like, "That's like."
How do you get to that position where you don't have a backup chassis?
He couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
that's what he was. So I was asking him about it, and he's going, "That is like bad." And there'll be a lot of questions asked, serious questions asked about that. And obviously, so far, if the race would have been in Europe, they would have been able to like get something back from the factory and that. But it's because of Australia, by the time you get it over there, but they not to have that backup is really bad. They obviously couldn't fix it.
Yeah.
And then they had the situation where they had to drop Logan Sargent, and go with Albon.
So icky, that, isn't it?
James Vowles did say that is one of the hardest decisions that he had to make.
That weren't
in
a
his
hard
position.
decision. Come on.
I don't know. I think it was.
We got one chassis, right? We got one chassis. We got Albon, who's a great driver, right? And then we got
Logan
Sargent,
Sargent.
who's rubbish, right? So how do we weigh this up here?
Well, this was
sorry,
his
Logan,
reasoning.
mate. Again, I'm doing, as for my football thing, I've got to bring the football analogy. You know what I mean? It's like, you got your main starting player and your sub.
Yeah.
Well,
You know,
this is basically how he made the decision.
You know them cases sometimes when a player gets sent off,
Yeah.
right, and someone's got to get hooked.
Yeah,
It's always like the little young player or
Yeah.
the little players. Oh, yeah, sorry, mate. You know,
Yeah.
you're
you
off.
put your arm around him here. Sorry, sorry about that. But that was the same with Sargent. You know what I mean? It weren't a hard decision.
Well,
it's hard in that.
He said it was hard, and
I don't believe it. It's hard in that it should never have happened.
yes, it shouldn't have
But
happened. Well,
if it came down to it, they were always going to go with Albon.
the reason it happened was because obviously Albon crashed. He crashed the car, and the chassis was beyond repair, and it couldn't be repaired in the time, and they would have to send it back to the factory. And it's not the usual case; they would have a backup, but they just didn't have the time in basically getting another chassis ready for it, a third one in time. So that decision was made, and James Vowell did say it was very hard that he had to make that decision. He shouldn't have been in that decision to make it, and the team shouldn't have been in it. But the gap between the bottom 5 teams is incredibly tight, and the decision was made on finishing positions at the end of the season, and it came down to single digits, that every point will matter. He noted that it was made because Albon's been a better driver so far this season, and obviously Albon scored 27 points last season and Sargent got 1. So
there you have
that
it.
had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and then, I don't even think you need to make that statement. Just say, it's tough because of the car.
But
if it boils down to it, it's pretty obvious.
Of course, you're going to put the better driver in. And, Logan Sargent said it was difficult to accept, but he was going to support the team the whole way. Alex Albon commended his teammate multiple times across the weekend, to say he was very thankful for it. Just not a great time if you're Logan Sargent.
It's difficult to accept when you see it, it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in sort of classic form, Albon finished 11th, so he didn't even score a point in the end, which is so. But he
would have done a better job than Logan Sargent anyway.
Well, if Logan had finished 11th, we'd be going, Albon would have come,
Albon would have been
10th or whatever. Would have got a point, but oh god, no points.
No, nil par for Williams. It wasn't a good weekend at all.
Disaster.
Danny Rick, another one having a terrible time.
He's doing himself no favours.
Yeah, he's doing himself no favours. Again, at a home race as well. It's not
Should he have come back?
Well, I think there was a call for it, and I think we were all for it. But then, obviously, when he missed that period of time last year, when he broke his wrist, didn't he? What was it? Yeah, broke his wrist. So obviously, when Liam Lawson come in and did such a good job, I think at that point maybe we probably could have stuck with Liam Lawson, but then they wanted to obviously give the seat back to Danny. But I feel like it's been said now, he's probably got 2 races to save his career in F1.
It's a bit like what I said earlier as well about having a face, isn't it? He's a face.
Yeah, and he's got a huge personality on the grid.
Yeah, exactly. So he's a face. That's why they brought him back, let's be real. But it's... writing's on the wall, isn't it?
I don't think we're going to see him past these next 2 races.
Really? You think they'll boot him?
I think they'll boot him, and I think Liam Lawson will come in.
Oh god, wow! I don't know if they'll get rid of him.
I don't think so.
It might be they wait until the summer break or something if he's still having a shocker. But he's really.
I'll give it 3 races.
He's really not. He's being shown up by Yuki Tsunoda, and kind of rightly so, because Yuki's been in that car for ages, has been given the time, and is driving quite well in it under the circumstances. But you would expect more from. Danny Ricciardo, what's he won, 7 or 8 races? Like,
for sure.
He should be doing a hell of a lot better.
Are we seeing some of these drivers now? A bit like there's a lot of analogies today, but it's a bit like boxing where, they were great in their day, but they're all coming to that natural,
And there's a lot of good talent coming through. There's
Ricciardo,
loads.
Maybe even Lewis. I don't know. Like some of these guys, like they've just fallen off, haven't they?
This is a conversation we've literally had week in, week out, and we're probably going to keep having it the whole season. That at what point do you cash in on the old guard, like the Valtteries, like the Lewises, like the Alonsos? Alonso's still probably performing the best out of those 3 I just mentioned, and probably still warrants a place within the sport. But there is a lot of fresh talent, and there is 20 seats. Like, I want to see that Oliver Behrman's getting a shot.
But the problem with F1 is that
I want to see Liam Lawson,
that face that you need to sell the sponsorship, to sell the.
There's a hell of a lot of money in F1, and I think that they can afford to have fresh blood. I think they want this sport to continue growing, and we can't just base it on having more races in America.
They can, but I think we saw this season, no team changed their driver.
No, because this was a nothing. This is a nothing season.
It is, but
it's all happening next year.
Like I said, when they got sponsorship to sell, when they've got these guys, these faces. Help to sell, especially in a lesser car. you're having someone like a Ricciardo in your car. Even though he's at the back of the grid, he's famous. I mean, he's a massive star in F1.
People love, particularly because of the Netflix. People love.
Yeah,
Ricardo.
so
He's popular.
when you go to sell your sponsorship and that on a car that's at the back of the grid, having Daniel Ricciardo there or some unknown kid who's coming through, that's why these guys are getting the drive.
Do you know where he needs to go? Haas. Danny Rick in a Haas.
God.
You heard it here first. We will wrap up with that, guys. Thank you, Rob. Thank you very much, Joey/Joe Ashman.
Nice.
I still like the rebrand. Yeah, so we've got a couple of weeks break, and then we are to Japan.
Japan.
Nice race, nice track for you.
I mean, I quite like playing the F1 game, and my God, I cannot get my head around those S-bends. They're horrible. I lose so much time on them. Yeah, I mean, unpredictable, absolutely. Hopefully, it continues in that vein, and yeah, should be a lovely race that delivers.
You excited? Do you like Japan?
Yeah, Japan's always a good circuit, and you know what's going to happen with Max? Will he bounce back? Will he even be there?
Whoa! Red Bull are going to forget the chassis.
Yeah, right. Look, coming from a Mercedes fan, worry about your own team, okay? When Lewis starts finishing, you know, top 10. We'll talk.
Yeah, no, he's just keeping it for his Ferrari next year, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
Oh, look at you, Tan Coat, gonna be a Ferrari fan next year.
Ferrari.
Honestly, I thought you were loyal. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for joining us on Track GP right here on DR Sports. Make sure you do like and subscribe. Obviously, get involved in the chat as well. Let us know, what you think about all of this that we're talking about, and we will see you very soon.